Hi there, I'm Dr. Jen Anderson. Welcome to the Study and Learning Centre series of workshops for graduate researchers. This is the second of 3 workshops on the literature review. If you're wondering why it's difficult to write a review of literature, it's because 2 complex processes are occurring at the same time. Writing is more than just text work, that is, learning how to write using the appropriate language structures, expressions, and layout. It's also identity work, constructing your academic self based on your worldview and the discourse community or communities you're joining. In the process of research, you're likely to discover more about your assumptions and beliefs and create a new identity in addition to the ones that you already have. These discoveries occur as a result of intense engagement with the literature in your field or fields. Reading, interacting, and synthesizing ideas through writing are central to the construction of an academic identity, and it's through your writing work that you demonstrate your ability to join the research community. Professors Barbara Kamler and Pat Thomson have argued that identity work is difficult, and it's most difficult when we're writing the literature review. They say, we'd go so far as to say that literature reviews are the quintessential site of identity work, where the novice researcher enters what we call occupied territory, with all the imminent danger and quiet dread that this metaphor implies, including possible ambushes, barbed wire fences, and unknown academics who patrol the boundaries of already occupied territories. This metaphor reflects the anxiety and the threat of violence that PhD and master's candidates may experience in the first years of their research. But if we put aside the idea of threats, which tend to lead us to panic, we can see that the identity work of the novice researcher includes finding a way to belong by finding a point of difference, and doing this by challenging the existing scholarly community with something new. It's about finding a voice and a language that others in the community understand and recognise, even though it's fresh and new. What's your experience of planning for and writing a literature review? What's it been like for you? When you analyse your metaphor, how have you described the researcher yourself, the literature and or the field or fields that you're working in? How do you see yourself in relation to these themes? Pause the video and think about this for a while. Kamler and Thomson describe writing a literature review as a slippery challenge, like trying to select particular legs of an octopus to squeeze into a confined space. It's not easy to identify which sources to select, and even harder to find the language to relate these sources to our research. Furthermore, this relationship changes as we read more, think more, and write more. Why is it like taking meeting minutes? Well, you're summarising the ideas of others and their research findings, but really you're more than a minute taker, because once you attempt to faithfully interpret what others mean, you have the power to decide the way that this information will be used. Writing a literature review could be seen as being part of a conversation. Everyone proclaims their positions and you seek to work out where you fit in the noisy discussions taking place. Who will you align yourself with and why? Here's a metaphor that reveals a researcher who's taking more control. The literature review is like hosting a dinner party. Can you think why? Well, you decide who you'll invite to the table and where they'll sit, and you'll sit yourself in a strategic position, probably at the head of the table. You've designed the menu as a series of courses on the theme. It's going to be an interesting evening with stimulating discussion, and once it's over, you'll reflect on what people said and what this means from your perspective. Pause the video if you'd like to spend more time thinking about this metaphor. We talk about taking a hands-on hips position, one that is friendly but strong. It says, I know quite a bit about this topic, but there's still more to learn. It says, I know how I fit into the field or fields. And it says, this is my research. I alone am responsible. How do we achieve this in writing? Well, we make sure we take control of the main points. We debate our claims by arguing for our thinking or approach and challenging the ideas or approaches of others. We direct the reader to the gap by showing what's already been established or explored and what's missing. And we show what Kamler and Thomson call a healthy degree of appreciation and criticality. We are always grateful to academics for creating a body of knowledge and thinking from multiple perspectives so that we can identify our place among them. And we do not criticise the person. We critique research and scholarly ideas or actions. So, watch yourself as you take on the identity of a graduate researcher, how you develop a persona as you undertake your research work and write your literature review and thesis or dissertation. By submission, you're not likely to be the same person you were when you started. We're particularly grateful to the excellent work on identity by Professors Barbara Kamler and Pat Thomson. Their ideas have formed the core of this video. Next up, get familiar with academic style in writing a literature review. Cheers.